eyesore without the trees. But it's a 9-foot eyesore. It's not a 20-foot eyesore. So it's there is, but we can't have houses that are like from 1890 standards and not having the same sewer systems as Indian. There's no, I mean, people put their heads under it, but as soon as Montverde, the expansion for Willow Ridge, the voting block has.
Hi, how are you doing? Good to see you. Hi, how are you doing? Hey, I'm Paul. Nice to see you. Pleasure. Welcome. Thank you. How are you doing?
Hello, Karen, from Willow Ridge.
Hi, Paul. Nice to meet you. Pleasure. Thank you for coming. Hey, bud. How are you, my friend? Happy Wednesday. You too. Tom, how are you doing?
Good, and yourself?
Good. I can call Robert.
Good to see you. Likewise.
Doing okay?
I am. It's good.
Had your boat out later?
Actually, I just
Yeah.
just came out. Yeah.
Took your boat out or his boat?
His boat. Yeah, I am out. I just came in there and need a little relaxation. I've been out with my mom and rest. Confident knowing she's in a better place. Say again. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Randy Owen.
I'm Molly. Nice to meet you.
Is this your first time?
It is.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here first.
It's fun sometimes, he'll tell you. Yeah.
Thomas.
Thomas.
Good to see you.
Hi. Nice to meet you. So what do you guys Oh, okay.
So did you do the interior and everything? The flooring?
No, I didn't have the carpet in place. I cleaned it.
Okay.
He came out and took all the cushions, took it back to the shop.
All right.
And then I said,
How about we do a pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Let's go ahead and do a roll call.
Mayor Weincoop,
Here.
Vice Mayor Womack,
Here.
Councilmember Hartle,
Present.
and Councilmember Morganelli.
Here.
All righty, thank you. Alan, do you feel comfortable to do a prayer? Thank you.
Will you join me for a moment of prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time together, for those who have appeared and have come out tonight. We ask that you be with this gathering. Bless those who are here in attendance. Give us wisdom as counsels to be that like that of the Old Testament, Job, to have wisdom of Solomon. We ask you watch over us and protect us in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. All righty. Okay, everybody's here? Okay, great. All right, let's start with the first thing. The new council position, person to fill Jim Lay's position. What I wanted to do is have each person come up and talk to the council and then give the next person a chance. Who wants to be first? Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Marta Władyczka. Do I have to put my address out there?
Yeah.
Yes, 16632A Morningside Drive. And this is not my first rodeo. I have tried this before, and I am still here and able and available to support the town and the people and our council. 20 years of experience in public sector and currently a teacher of e-commerce and entrepreneurship at South Lake High School. Also a coach, water polo coach. I really love this town. I've been here as a resident for 5.5 years and in Lake County since 2004. And I would love to have this town continue to be what it has. I love all of the events that the town has produced, and this is the reason why my family moved here with my son and my husband. So again, here to support, and hopefully this time will be the time. If not, I'll be back.
Oh, wait, now,
yes.
anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Al.
I've got a list of 5 questions
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask you, and you can answer or not. How big is Montverde?
It is, well, as far as the number of votes that we were able to get, I think you have 800 residents that could vote.
How about the size?
The size, roughly, I don't know, it's growing, so larger than it was 2 years ago or 5 years ago. That's my best answer.
In the past year, roughly how many times have you been in a town council meeting in person?
So in person, 2 or 3, but I have watched meetings online.
Did you stay when you were in person till the end of the meeting?
Yes.
Have you ever spoken before council on an issue?
Not on the microphone. I have communicated with our mayor when there were things that were happening so that I could be of service.
Okay. Property rights, what are they in the terms of Montverde? How do they apply the term property rights to the town of Montverde?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer exactly.
Okay.
But I will find out.
One last thing, there seems to be some stuff on social media, and I want to ask you this. It pertains to being appointed to a seat versus elected. If a person is appointed versus elected, what is your opinion on their validity of their council seat? Why or why they not a valid person?
Well, I have been informed, thanks to Mr. Paul Lorena, who sent a document my way so that I could read it and see what the actual law of our town says, and someone who is appointed by the council has the same rights as anyone that is actually elected.
Thank you.
So I have been schooled, and I'm actually very appreciative of sending that information to us, because it is often a misconception that someone who has been appointed does not have the same rights as someone who has been elected.
Thank you. That's all the questions
Thank you.
I have.
Wait.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I have one question.
Yes.
Because you ran at the last election, do you feel that that would
give you special treatment to being appointed?
I don't believe so. I don't believe anyone has special treatment. I think maybe more people will know who I am than maybe some others.
Thank you.
Carol, anything?
No, but I do commend you for stepping up in November and making a good run. Can't tell you what's going to happen here tonight, but the more people that run for the council, the stronger the town will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. Appreciate you doing this. All righty. Anybody want to put your hand up, or I can call somebody? Come on up.
Alphabetical.
Hi there, I'm Sharon Hildenbrandt. I'm your neighbor. I came here about 2 years ago, December 22. I picked Montverde. I wanted to be here. The big problem I was having, is I couldn't find a home to buy. So
I apologize, just for the record, could you say your address one more time into
I'm
the
sorry.
into the mic? Thank you.
There you are. 16843 Florence View Drive. Okay. So I was determined to be here, and I built a home on a lot that I found, and I got myself here because I love this community. It's a beautiful community. I wake up every day grateful that I have my home and that I live in such a beautifully well-kept community with it's neighborly and quaint and quiet and serene. And I'm hoping I can help. I think I have some skill sets to offer. I retired a few years ago. I was living in Georgia. I worked for Macy's for about 35 years. I managed several of their buying divisions in their central offices. It amounted to about $250 to $300 million responsibility. I managed several hundred people at the end of the day. I learned a lot. Loved every minute of it. Skill sets that could be available to this situation would involve extreme attention to analytics, financials, managing a budget. We couldn't survive in retail without doing that. Managing a team building, training, mentoring, bringing a person along to replace me. Negotiating. We negotiated with a lot of vendors around the world. We had to get the best price, the best product. So we became good negotiators. I learned to be flexible. I knew that there was no straight shot to a solution. Every decision I ever made, there was always another one because you had to react. Retail's fast. So you had to gather up your facts, but keep gathering. You had to listen to the responses and keep responding to them. I came away from that situation believing that I could probably conquer any problem. We were very problem solver oriented. Well, I was still in Georgia the last 7 years that I was there. I was on an HOA board. I was asked to get involved. There were 5 of us. The last few years I was the president. The community was a 20-year-old community with a lot of new communities coming up around it, and we needed help because we were looking a little tired. What we did was we installed a lot of new installations into the community. We spruced up the landscaping. We upscaled the electronics, the security, the lighting. Did a lot for the community, and we installed new systems, new ways of operating with our community. So I'm very proud of how the community looked and how it operated when I left, and how that I learned from that experience as well, that for our homeowners, it was much more personal than I had guessed, that the decisions of the board affected them very personally, whether it was their landscaping in their yards, the standards in the community, or the value of their property. We affected all of that. It was very personal for them. And we had to learn to communicate, to listen to what their expectations were, and explain to them why we made the decisions we did, because it was almost impossible to make everybody happy all the time. So we had to learn how to communicate really well. But as I said, I was really happy with how we left the community, and that the community had probably been brought along to be able to compete with all the new communities around it. So I've now come to this community, and about a year and a half ago, one of my family members was diagnosed with a horrible illness, and I've been involved in helping him and bringing him into my home and taking care of him. The good news is he's now well again.
Wow.
And my brother has been able to go home, and he has a quality of life. And I've learned a lot from the whole healthcare system, and it was a learning. So I'm on to my next project here. I hope I can help. I hope I can bring something to this, and if I can't, find something else I can do, because my engine's still running, and I still want to do something to help. I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to me.
Anybody have questions? Alan?
Start with you again. How big is Montverde in size?
It does have about 800 properties. I have no idea what the real estate is on it.
In the past year, how many times have you been to a council meeting in person?
About 3 times. I have been listening, and I have been reading the reviews on the meetings.
Have you ever spoken before council on an issue that was brought before council?
No.
Okay. Of course, have you run for a seat in the past 2 years?
No.
Right. Property rights. How or what do you define in terms of Montverde property rights?
I don't know that Montverde has a distinct difference in property rights than anybody else. I can only guess, if I were to tell you, that I understand our property rights to be inalienable, that we own our property and we have dominion over our property within range of certain standards.
If a person is appointed versus elected, what is your opinion on their validity, and why or why not as a council person?
I would expect both situations to be treated the same way.
In terms of uncontrolled growth, how do you define and apply that to specifically the town of Montverde?
I think I would go to the infrastructure that was being built up around that growth, because if the infrastructure does not meet the growth, then we have a problem. Otherwise, growth generally is a good thing.
Well done.
Done.
Okay.
I'm just, one quick question, I'm just curious. We're not too far away from November. Why stepping up now? Why not? Why didn't you run in November?
I didn't know what was going to happen to my brother. He was still with me. He required feedings and medication, and he had dementia. And
I feel your sister.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, but the good news is around Christmas we realized he was cancer-free, and we were on our road to getting him back home again. So I couldn't do that until I knew what was going on.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have anything? No?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Right,
Thanks a lot.
great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to me. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Sarah.
it.
No, we appreciate it. All right, come on up.
Hello, council and citizens. Jim Peacock, 16549 Lowry Road. I'm a native Floridian, originally from the Panhandle, but lived in Montverde in September will be 30 years. I am retired from a 40-year career in commercial construction. I have spent, I believe, 4 to 5 years on Planning and Zoning Committee, several years on Visioning Committee, and 7 or 8 years on council. I've lost track of the time, to tell you the truth. I'm also presently on the Green Mountain Scenic Byway Committee. I've been recently appointed by the Lake County Commission to the Lake County Parks and Recreation Board. I was instrumental in getting the aeration system of Lake Florence approved about 17 years ago through Lake County Water Authority, the town of Montverde, and Montverde Academy all contributed to the cost of that, but I ramrodded the thing through. And I have done the maintenance on that system for the last 17 years also at no cost to the town. The town provides the power and the parts, and I do the maintenance. I've also been involved in the town, whether I'm on any committee or council, from like over 20 years ago, coordinating the re-roofing of this building and the fire department, helping with getting the numbers and the subs lined up and coordinating that. How many of you remember when this room was uneven bare concrete floor with wooden theater seats in it? I pushed that through. I got the bids from the subcontractors to level the floor, put the carpeting in, and also the window treatment that's in here. That was, I don't know, 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And also the platform you're sitting on now, this leveled platform in this area, I spent several days with Paul and the town staff putting that together. I came back after the fact and installed these railings that are on each side. I'm a pretty good carpenter, if I say so myself. I've also helped every Christmas, the Christmas stand that's underneath this huge Christmas tree out there. I spent, again, several days with Paul and the staff putting that together 2 years ago. And then this year, John Everlano and I put it back together again. You know. The generator that's over on the other side of the fire department, I pushed that through to get that installed. I got the quotes, coordinated that installation. And the fire department expansion, when I was not on council at the time, I helped ramrod that and supervise that addition of the fire department over there. Also, I've been assisting John with the construction of the library. He's doing a great job, and I've been just coordinating with him as needed. But to begin with, I don't know if you're aware, but in the construction of the library, the town, the subcontractors are working for the town, with John doing the supervision. We're not using a general contractor. I pushed the council and the town to accept that at the very beginning. And according to my estimates, it's going to save us $400,000 to $500,000 when it's all said and done. You know, because we don't have a general contractor's fee, nor the general contractor's cost for managing the project. Okay. When I was on the council also, too, that we have a lot of grants approved, including the library, the sewer system, which is now stormwater cost on that, the sports courts. Last of all, I've heard a lot about lack of transparency. In my time on the council, I've never been involved or seen any attempt to hide any information from the citizens. You know, and I kind of take a little bit of affront to that. If an individual attends the meetings online or in person, looks at the meeting, looks at the meeting minutes, and does the research on the subjects, they will know just as much as the council does. I've never seen any attempt, again, to hide any information from the public. My view of the town is maintaining our atmosphere that we have now. You know, the key to it is controlled growth. We can't stop growth, but we have to control it. And in the past, I think the council has done a great job with the Willow Ridge area and the Roper property over here. I think they've gotten the best outcome possible for those properties at this time. And that's it.
All right. Any questions?
So I'm going to ask the same question I asked Marta. That is, by you running in November, do you feel that that gives you any special treatment, I guess, as far as to be appointed?
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
And you had mentioned Willow Ridge,
yeah,
and controlled growth and everything. That was actually, you had voted for that, if I remember correctly, when you were on council back then, right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Do you want to know why?
No, I read the report.
Okay.
Jim, I got to ask you 6 questions like I'm asking everybody else. How big is Montverde in size?
Well, last I heard, we had 1,200 residents, and with the addition of Willow Ridge, that's probably up to 1,300 or 1,400 now. And the square miles size, I really don't know off the top of my head. I know where the town limits are, but the actual square footage or square mileage, I do not know right off the top of my head.
In the past year, how many times have you been to council in person? meetings in person?
I believe 10. I think I missed 2 earlier this year.
And do you or have you ever spoken on an issue before council?
Oh, yes.
And have you stayed at council meetings to the very end?
Oh, yes. Particularly when I'm on council, I don't have a choice.
Have you ran for council seat before within the last 2 years?
Yes, I have.
If so, were there others
I'm
that
sorry?
ran against you? When you ran for council seat in the past 2 years, were there other people that ran against you?
Oh, of course, yes.
Okay. Property rights, what or how do you define in terms of Montverde only?
I don't think you can classify it as Montverde only. A person
Well,
has...
the reason I ask is because what happens in Lake County and Mineola and everything else, that doesn't affect us.
Well, I understand that. I understand that. But a person has the right to develop and do with his property as he pleases, as long as he maintains compliance with all the the regulations and everything regarding the jurisdiction he's in. As long as he complies with everything regarding to Montverde regulations, do what they want, you know. But there's also county regulations, state and federal regulations that factor into that also.
In the past, I've seen the term thrown around, uncontrolled growth. How do you define or apply that to within the confines of the town of Montverde?
Oh, I'm against uncontrolled growth, absolutely. The key to is controlled growth. We cannot stop growth. It has to be controlled. And as I mentioned, I think the council has done a great job in the past with the 2 properties that I mentioned.
Last question, if a person is appointed versus elected, what is your opinion of their validity as an elected officials, and why or why not?
Oh, it's the same validity. The town charter states that a vacant seat will be elected by the town council. So there's no choice there,
Right.
you know.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you,
All
Jim.
right, we're all good. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
All right, come on up, Thomas.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Johnson. I live in 16637 Magnolia Terrace Boulevard, Montverde, Florida, of course. I'd like to thank everyone for reaching out, giving me their condolences. You know, I recently lost my mother. This past weekend, I laid her to rest, and I just want to thank you for your support. With that said, I'm currently serving on the Planning and Zoning Committee for quite some time. I serve as the co-chair. I'm also been involved with the Vision Committee for quite some time. Adopt a Road, along with Boy Scouts, started a troop, marriage counseling. I possessed a bachelor's degree in science of management. I have a master's degree in master in business administration. I've have a outstanding skill set in construction. I've also was a project manager for Orlando Utility Commission, as well as a sustainability person for the entire commission. There's several boards that I've served on. I served as the president for Magnolia Terrace. I currently serve on the ARB, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to run for this position. I moved into Montverde several years ago, and some folks just welcomed me with open arms. We became great friends, and now I consider them as family. Montverde, I think, is a close-knit town that, and I just love the rolling hills of Montverde. I don't want to go on and blow myself up. I think my record speaks for itself. So again, I welcome the opportunity for to serve, and if I'm elected, I look forward to becoming part of the team to make it a stronger team.
Ready? You have any questions? You have any? Oh, go ahead.
Again, sorry about your mom.
Thanks again.
It's all good. The same question I've asked everyone else, which is, as far as in reference to you ran previously, do you feel it gives you any special treatment?
No, not at all. I enjoyed it. It was something new, and it was great. And congratulations to those who won. And I think you've done a great job. I don't have a problem with transparency. I think that we just need to do a better job to making sure that the rest of the community is aware of what's really going on.
Go ahead.
Yep, I got my series of questions. How big is Montverde in size, Thomas?
Well, I think it was about 1250, and it's growing.
In the past year, how many times have you been to a council meeting in person?
Several. I don't keep track with it. I just try to make sure that I'm involved and participating so that I'm up on all the current events that's taking place here.
When you were in council chambers, did you stay till the very end?
Say again?
When you were sitting in the audience in council chambers, did you stay to the very end of the meetings?
Yes, I've been there. That last one was very long.
Do you have?
I think it was record breaking. Am I correct?
If it wasn't, it's got to be pretty close.
All right.
Have you ever spoken before council on an issue?
Yes, I have. I'd like to bring one into your attention. I'm sure you remember. I did the presentation for a lot of the new development around here, and I thank the council or the vision team, Paul, for allowing me the opportunity to roll out the interior and exterior design.
Next question, property rights. How do you define that in terms of the town of Montverde?
Well, I don't have a specific answer that states whether it's right or wrong. I just think that we need, as a town, we need to live within the rights of the town ordinance and what's the term here? Within the town's ordinance, rights and properties ordinance.
Next question, the term that gets kicked around, uncontrolled growth in Montverde. How do you define that?
Well, I really don't think there's any uncontrolled growth in Montverde. I think the town council has a firm grip on what's being in place here. I think the way that it's being controlled is we stay in control of how things are being done and making sure that they match what's currently being developed or what's in place.
And the last question I ask is, if a person's appointed versus elected, what is your opinion of their validity and why or why not?
Well, I think it's the same. Although the person that's being elected tonight gets another opportunity by getting on the board and showing their worth and what they bring to the table versus the folks who won through an election.
Thank you.
All right.
First off, thank you for your time on P&Z. That's a very good committee to be on. And thank you for coming out in November. And regardless of what happens in here tonight, come back in November.
Thank you.
Make your best stand at it.
All right. Thanks again.
All righty. Thank you very much.
That's all right. Yeah, I just had one more quick question. Right? If you were to find yourself in the seat on this council, I know that you probably have some ideas of.
Yes.
All right, what would your I guess your first item on your agenda, if you were to find yourself on this council, what would you look at?
Well, what I'd like to do, if I'm on the council, is start a scholarship program for the less fortunate with getting their water bill paid. I have some ideas, and I'd like to surrender some funds to get it started so that we can just, I think it's about helping, giving a hand or a leg up for those who are less fortunate, along with some, I know folks run into some problems. They need some help with cleanup to get their things in order as far as staying in compliance. I'd like to be able to form a committee to help those folks who need the help.
It's funny, a little while back, I don't know, before Paul, we had add a buck, we called it, to the water bill. So you $36 bill, you would pay 37, and that dollar would go in their bucket. And people that were having issues with paying their water bill could come and ask to get help. And I went and sat with Claremont and Mineola in their council meetings and introduced that idea to them, and they said they were going to do it. I don't know if they ever did, but it was a great program here, and after a while we didn't have anybody asking for help because we got out of 2010, 11, 12, and all that, and we stopped doing it then, but it was a good program. People did need it.
Okay. Well, if I'm elected, we're going to see how it goes. I'll do my best to make sure that I make a difference.
I bet you would. Thank
All
you
right.
very much,
Thank you.
Thomas.
Thank you.
All righty. How about Mr. Grant? There you go.
Grant Roberts, 16004 Ridgewood Avenue. I was raised in Montverde. I've lived here my whole life. I got a young family that we started out and like to, continue on with that. The last 4.5 years, I've come to almost every single council meeting. I've had applications ran through the town, paid attention to the process and the, the subjects that the town is addressing currently. I own a small business, and I just like to be a part of the team, the decision-making team in town. So I'll keep it short and simple.
All righty. Joe, you got anything?
I'm getting tired of not talking, Alan. How big is Montverde?
Size-wise, approximately 2 square miles. I think of the 2020 consensus, it was between 1,200 and 1,300 residents.
That's it? He's told your question.
Wait, there's 4 more questions.
Wait, he's got more.
I don't remember them all.
Oh, I got a few more, yeah. Let's see, past year, how many times have you been in council meetings?
Almost every single one. If I don't come, I watch it online.
And have you ever spoken before an issue on council?
Yes.
And you stayed to the very, very end.
Every time.
All right.
Except for the last one, I had a vacation to go to the next day. I needed to finish packing.
The term property rights, that gets kicked around a lot. What or how do you define that in terms of our town, Montverde?
So the town's land development code would be a great resource to, to look that up. It probably has a breakdown of every single object that you could, as a property owner, future land uses, what variances, what would require a variance. I would just review that for any of those items.
The next is the term that keeps getting thrown around, uncontrolled growth. Everything is uncontrolled. So in terms of Montverde, how do you define uncontrolled growth to Montverde, or is it an issue?
I haven't seen that. I've seen the council bring applicants from like 340 houses, I believe it was, in the Osgood property down to 139. I wouldn't say we have a problem, too much of a problem with uncontrolled growth. I think there's some infrastructure issues that need to be addressed prior to continuing any more growth, though.
And lastly, if you're appointed, how do you perceive the term appointed versus elected? What's your opinion on the validity of why or why not?
I believe it's the same thing, and gives you a reason to fight extra hard for it in November.
Thank you.
All righty, Carol.
Yeah, I do. Same question. Why did you not step up in November?
I had an application through with the town at the time. I didn't want to hurt myself with a vote by having to step back from it. So
And if you found yourself at this council, what would your first priority be?
I really like the events that we've been doing in town. I'd like to try to bring the farmers market back. Do some things that I can bring my family out to and enjoy.
Thank you.
I have
Thank
one other
you.
question. I got one other question. You have all the different stuff going on with the town. I guess that's something that we'll probably end up discussing, but how do you see yourself as far as that goes with that? You have, the different applications you have in front of you and things of that nature.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
You have an active, ongoing situation that you're going to be coming up. You'd have to excuse yourself, obviously, for that.
Yeah.
Do you see that being any kind of issue going forward?
Going forward, it would just be a site plan application, so I don't think I'd be hurting myself too hard on that. I think the hardest part is behind me at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you. Come on up.
Brian Rubio, 16548 Magnolia Terrace. Good evening, guys. I did write a brief summary, which I'll just kind of go through it. At the core of who I am a Marine Corps veteran, small business owner. I am a husband and the father of 2 young children. I am proud to call Montverde my home. I have applied to the Open Town Council seat because I care deeply for the town's future. I do bring a proven background in leadership, accountability, and transparency. I've served on various committees, not with the town, but outside with the Orlando Regional Realtor Association on various committees, ranging from Finance Committee to Military Advisory Council to professional standards on hearing panels for ethics and arbitration hearings. Let's see, Tech Innovation Committee. Outside of that, Lake County, I did sit on the Valley Adjustment Board for about 2 years. But I could tell you about the committees and what which ones I serve, but I guess the main point is how does that translate to experience? And some of that translation is governance, policy development, fiscal oversight, budget discipline, community advocacy and engagement, data-driven, impact-aware decision-making, and being nimble, resourceful, and solutions-oriented. Overall, to this day, from the Marine Corps, we're instilled with certain core values that I carry, and I'm going to carry to the day that I, pass away. Some of those include honor through integrity, responsibility, and accountability, courage to do the right thing in the right way for the right reasons, and the commitment to serve this community with focus, consistency, and heart. And that's my little brief overview.
All righty, do you have any questions?
So I think I'm going to discuss with council at some point, but just so you know, hopefully everybody can hear me here. We've received 7 emails or so from your fellow residents in favor of you. That speaks some volumes for you. So, and I also want to thank you for your service, and that's all that I had for you for right now.
I appreciate you bringing I was aware that a few people did tell me that they send in emails and reached out, so.
Alan?
You ready? How big's Montverde, Brian?
1.9 square miles, 1.67 is land, 0.21 is water.
In the past year, how many times have you been in council meetings in person?
So since the whole sewage plant, I've been here pretty much every single meeting. I think with the exception of one, but I had to watch online.
Have you ever spoken on an issue before council?
Yes, several times.
You stayed till the end?
Yes, pretty much 95%. I usually leave before the actual meeting is officially closed.
With your past experience as a realtor, I want to kind of property rights. You know the question, how do you define those in terms of Montverde?
Well, at the most basic definition, obviously it's the ability to use your property. Of course, you have to stay within guidelines, and some of those guidelines, could be 1 house per half acre. Or, obviously there's a lot of variances, ordinances. I mean,
Uncontrolled growth, you've seen that as a realtor, I'm sure, and heard that kicked around. How do you define that, and how do you apply that to Montverde? Do you see it?
so uncontrolled growth has been pretty a hot topic issue for just pretty much everywhere in Central Florida. Claremont obviously has a boom. In Neola, obviously, it's getting to us with the most recent PUD approval. I don't necessarily deem it uncontrolled. I think it needs to be more responsible growth. And obviously from, at least the council members pertaining to the town of Montverde to do due diligence in making sure that everything is covered, that you kind of go through every single scenario in regards to the impact to the residents and obviously the nature. I mean, just nature in general.
Well, a good last one. If a person's appointed versus elected, what's your opinion on their validity as a person on council?
They're both pretty essentially the same, with the exception of if you're appointed, obviously you're going to serve the remaining of the term, and then obviously if you're elected, you do get the full term.
In your experience as a realtor, I'm going to go off the deep end here. I'm assuming you've seen successes and disasters in the real estate market as for development. How would that experience, do you feel, be an integral part of the council?
So, and I've seen this across Central Florida, different towns, and mainly what I could say is your property values will get impacted, whether it's for the good or for the worse. And I could tell you that, a simple basic, if you dilute something, it's going to be worth less.
That's all I got.
Why didn't we see you in November?
So I felt I wasn't prepared at that time. And I told myself that I was going to obviously attend every single meeting and do research and be heavily involved, obviously from the other side, to prepare myself. Now for this upcoming one, absolutely. That's kind of what I was preparing myself. Obviously, council member did leave, so just
Absolutely, take the opportunity.
Yep.
And if you found yourself on this council, what would your first priority be?
So first priority, it's hard to say because as a single council member, there's not really much you could do. Obviously, it takes all council members. But from the first priority is just basically have a sit down with everyone involved, from town staff, town attorney, each of you sit down and just, kind of get your take on, you serving. And then from there, obviously, I'll develop my own ideas and think outside the box and then bring things up to, the rest of the council.
And the same thing, regardless of what happens, I do hope to see you in November.
Well, I'll certainly be there.
Excellent. Well, no, maybe you'll be right here, but we'll see what happens, yeah.
Well, if he wins, he's going to be there either way.
If he wins.
You
that's
got to
all right.
run either way.
Yeah, exactly. Any other questions?
No, don't think so. All righty.
All right.
All right, I'll bring it back to council. Any discussion?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
So one of the things I guess I'd like to hear from you guys is, you all, is what are you looking for in this seat? For me, I made some notes as we were going through this. Alan had made a great question, which is coming to the meetings and staying for the meetings. I think that's a key there. I think staying for the whole meeting. Engaging council and honestly doing research on their own to come when they do engage with us. That's sort of what I would be looking for.
I think everybody that stood before us tonight kind of sort of follows that pattern. I think all 5 of them were well prepared. I think that was right, 5. And yeah, don't ask me.
I'm not sure either. That's 5 or 6.
But it,
6.
I think all of our candidates tonight were well prepared, and they all presented themselves very, very well. Having said that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to nominate Jim Peacock because he has the experience to sit on this council and follow us out through November, and after that, we'll leave it to the election. But Montverde spoke in November. You got the top two sitting here. It's, in my mind, common sense to have the third place guy sit at this council. So I nominate Jim Peacock.
All right, I have a nomination.
Did you want to have discussion yet before you second? Or no, do you just want to, if you want to second?
Well, there's a motion on the table, so I need a second. Does anybody want to second it? Jim Peacock. All right, I'll second it. Okay, so now we do a vote, and if it fails, we go on. All in favor for Jim Peacock, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All against, say nay.
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 Okay, so let's keep going. Anybody else want to talk about anybody? Do you?
Yeah, I'll nominate Brian Rubio.
Okay, I have a motion to nominate Brian Rubio. I need a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Okay, so what do we do, Anita?
Continue to make motions with the remaining applicants.
Okay. Okay, do we have an motion for any of the other candidates?
Thomas Johnson.
I have a motion for Thomas Johnson. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have, I got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are you and I? No? Okay. All in favor, say nay.
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 Nay. Nay.
Okay, so we got one vote there, Thomas. Okay, who's left? All in favor, I need a motion for Grant.
We're just going down the, all right, I'll make the motion then for Grant.
Okay, I got a motion for Grant.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Now, since I've already voted,
No, we're doing another motion. Your motion is dead. But you can vote yea or nay on this.
I'll vote yea.
Okay, so we got one yes for Grant. Sue? Is you voting for Grant? Well, you made the motion, so you're voting. You second it?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay. All in
Mayor, could I clarify? I'm sorry. I was confused at how many yeas we had. I didn't
Joe made
know
the motion.
If he made the motion,
Yeah,
so that's the.
I made the motion.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So well.
I'm sorry?
Would you use hands or do a roll call because it's getting hard to keep up with
Okay.
this
We're
voting?
having to type it in on the
All in
record here.
favor, raise your hand for Grant.
Okay, so Carol.
Against? Okay, and who's left? Marta, all in favor, I'll make a motion to nominate Marta. Need a second? Okay, that one's gone. We got Grant, Marta, Rubio, Peacock. We need Sarah.
Sharon.
Sharon.
Huh?
Sharon.
Sharon, I'm sorry. I need a motion to nominate Sharon. I make a motion to nominate Sharon. Need a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Raise the hands.
Or raise your hand if you want.
I second it. I'll raise my hand.
Okay. And all against, raise your hand. Okay, so everybody's tied out. Anita, what do we do?
You have to request more applications would be the next.
And put a deadline on
Leave it blank.
Can we go until November? I think our municipal code does say
I don't
that.
think your charter allows it, but I'll look a moment.
it? Well, is there a certain amount of time we have to recess before the next vote?
Yeah, give her one moment while she pulls up the charter on that.
Oh, good point.
ask a question to council while they're looking this up? Did you guys all receive all these emails?
I did.
You did, okay, because they weren't in our packet. I was just curious as to if there was a reasoning behind all
Was there,
that.
I thought there was more than 7.
There may have been, I'm not sure. There was they were all pro one candidate from what I remember. I just was making sure that you guys all did.
I did have staff forward them to all of the council members, so they are in your emails.
Yeah.
The charter does mandate that the council by majority vote appoint someone to fill the position for the remainder of the unexpired term, because you don't have an election scheduled within the next 60 days.
So we can reschedule a time to vote on it next?
Right, you could solicit more applications, you can reconsider those that you've already voted on to see if the vote has changed, but those would be your options.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we continue this in our May regular scheduled meeting, which is May what now?
Does the community get to make any?
No. May would be May 13th.
May 13th.
So I make a motion to extend this to May 13th. And if anybody else wants to put in an application, please have it here by the, what would you say, the 5th, the week before? I would think that.
We would need them by May 1, because we do have to qualify them, and then also have them ready for packets on Monday.
Okay, so anybody wants to do an application, if you haven't done it already, May 1, have it in by, is that, you now need a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Raise your hand for aye.
Do all the existing, do they have to reapply again?
No.
So we're just adding more to that.
Yeah, so anybody that's here, if you want your application pulled, let the town clerk know, we'll pull it, otherwise we'll consider it still active as a part of the recruitment process.
Right. Okay, that's it. Against, say nay, or raise your hand, say nay. Ayes have it. All right, let's move on. Next, we're going to do the Public Safety and Visioning Committee appointment.
And that will be the revised one on your table, Mayor and Council.
All right, so here's the names that we have in front of us to either okay or deny or whatever. So anybody have any problems? I'll open it up to the public. Bring it back from public. Anybody have any problems with any of these candidates on the committees? Yep.
Point of order or question. Are those, Paul, to be put up on the screen?
No, I don't have them on this PowerPoint, I apologize.
Thank you.
Anybody want to add or subtract anybody to these lists?
No, I would like to bring up that this is actually the first time that we're actually having 2 people from Willow Ridge on an actual committee. So hats off to them for participating.
All righty. And then I make a motion that we accept the list the way both lists the way they are.
The updated revised list?
Huh?
The updated revised list?
Yeah, the one I got in front of me, the one.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hands. Aye. Against, say nay. Ayes have it. All righty. Let's keep on going. I'm going to move resolution 2025-169 up to the first resolution we're going to do so we can help the gentleman that's here get in and out quick. This is his, or this is her resume. If you want to come up, come on up. It says he's our attorney that we're planning on using to moving forward for a magistrate lawyer. And a magistrate lawyer is the person that enforces and gives his opinion on code enforcement issues. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. Good evening, Council. David Langley, 10632 Masters Drive in Claremont, just down the road. I'd be happy to be your special magistrate for code enforcement hearings here for the town. The last 4 years I've worked for the Board of County Commissioners at their county attorney's office. Very recently left that job to open up my own firm. Also the town attorney with the town of Astatula and do some other local government practice. So I'm very happy to be your special magistrate.
Can you be a special magistrate for two cities?
So I wouldn't be. This would be my only special magistrate position.
Oh, okay.
But I actually got that question earlier today and researched it. It's not a dual office holding issue based on my research. Anita can, Ms. Grassi-Carver can check that as well.
So you can't, or you can?
You can. You can hold
Okay.
those two positions because they're both contractual rather than an elected position.
Okay, I'll open it up to the public. Any comments? This is the guy, if you do anything wrong, he's the guy that's going to be listening to you.
For code enforcement only.
Yeah. A special magistrate lawyer acts like the judge, more or less.
May I read the resolution?
Please.
Resolution 2025-169, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Florida, approving the Town of Montverde contract for special magistrate, appointing David M. Langley, authorizing execution, providing for an effective date.
All righty. Anybody want to question him? Talk to him? About it?
Question for you, David. Since your dad, Mike, and I go back a long way, I'm surprised you're not picking.
Don't hold that against me, please.
You're not picking fruit or selling or moving fruit. Yeah, so. And my wife says from elementary school, at First Christian Academy, she remembers you.
Oh, really?
So.
That's great. I grew up playing baseball in these fields right here, so I'd be very happy to work for the town.
Well, I won't hold everything I hold against Mike against you. I'm just kidding. So we go back, Claremont graduates, class of 77, class of 76. So, yeah. So, thank you. Yeah.
I have a couple questions for you.
Yes, sir.
So I actually was handed your resume right before the meeting, so if some of my questions are on there, I apologize. So when I looked at our packet, it basically saying we're appointing a special magistrate, and this is who it was. So that left me with going, who is David Langley? You know, simple question. So I researched, and I found I'm assuming, if this isn't you, then we have two David Langleys in this general area. So hopefully that's not the case. It looks like the areas of expertise for you was car accidents and medical malpractice.
That's not me.
That's not you. Okay.
Unfortunately, there's a Daniel Langley who is based out of like the Orlando area. No relation, so there's quite a few Langleys running around. Unfortunately.
I'll give you my papers so you can have it, so you can look at it, because that
yeah,
was
like I said, I worked for the
strange.
county the last 4 years, and in my private practice, which has been the last 2 months, I've been doing local government and some civil litigation. So.
I'm going to borrow one of Alan's questions from earlier, and that's property owner rights. Where do you sort of stand?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I was thinking about it as you were asking the appointees, and for an attorney, it's a tough one to answer because you could go through the condemnation process, that you have a right to be compensated for your property, the right to use your property in compliance with the zoning laws and regulations. As it relates to being the code enforcement special magistrate, my job would simply be to look at the evidence the town has as a violation, look at the land development regulations, see if those two things, whether or not you have a violation, and then make an adjudication of it. So.
And the dumb question that I'm going to ask is fairly, correct? Like you're going to look at that fairly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's fine. Thank you.
And Florida Statute 162 has, as it relates to property rights, a lot of notice procedure that must be followed. So part of my job would be checking those notice procedures as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anita, I have a sidebar question for you.
Yes.
Eminent domain, would that fall under his jurisdiction?
No.
In that, okay, good.
No, it's code enforcement.
Oh.
I got a question. Does I know your position reports directly to the council. Does he direct the report to you or to the council?
He's actually a neutral party to the town, so he doesn't represent the town as far as giving you legal advice or making any determinations. He acts as a neutral judge in hearing code enforcement cases brought before him.
Okay.
But he is hired by the council. He contracts with the council.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All righty. Any more questions?
Sorry.
How did you enjoy being a JAG officer?
I still enjoy it. I'm still in the reserves and do that on the weekends and 2 weeks in the summer. Brigade Judge Advocate for a unit out of Tennessee. It's a great job, but the stresses on the family for military life can be tough. So coming back home and staying in the reserves was kind of a compromise on that. So.
Good.
All righty, I make a motion, we accept
Second.
David Langley.
Joe got one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got one more question.
No, I actually do.
Go ahead.
Not a question for him, more for council. So something when I got elected, I had talked to Paul about, and I sort of would like to see on our website, sort of when I was a kid, I'll say, we went through the life of a bill, like from Washington, right? Like, here's how this thing whole worked. I'm showing age, and I apologize on that. But having said that, I would actually like to see on our website a way for our residents to understand the life to getting to him, to be honest. You know, what does it take to see him? I mean, nobody wants to see the magistrate, I mean, obviously. So what are the steps that are going through for our residents to understand? When we say magistrate, that's a scary term. So I'd like people to understand there's a lot of steps, and Paul did explain it to me, and I'll be honest, I can't remember them all, Paul, because there were so many steps and so many days in between each action. I'd like to see something like that on the website, because I think it would benefit our residents to maybe soften the understanding of a magistrate coming in. It's not something that just happens overnight.
Oh, so you're kind of like, if there's a problem, the next step is this,
Correct, yes.
followed by that?
Right, yeah, and
Okay.
I know there's a 15-day, and Paul, please correct me here on this one. We had walked through all of this. It was so many days in between each action taken. I just think that would be something beneficial to our residents to see. You know.
What do you think, Anita?
Sure, we can put something together if the council would like.
All righty, everybody wanted?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, if you would, please.
Thank you.
So we need a second on the motion?
Made a motion to hire him.
So second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Thank you for coming and joining the team. All righty. Let's move on to the first resolution, if you would, please, 2025-163.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Florida, relating to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, FDEP, State Revolving Fund for the supplemental appropriation for Hurricanes Fiona and Ian, adoption of the Montverde Safi Drinking Water Facility Plan amendments for the implementation of drinking water improvements, authorizing the town manager to provide assurances and commitments required by the facility plan, providing directions to the town manager, providing for conflicts and severability, providing for an effective date.
All righty, let me have you explain this to us, Paul.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. And Scott will go in a little more in detail. I'm just going to give you a quick overview. Last year, the town received a roughly $12.9 million grant. It's actually a loan that has 100% loan forgiveness, and it goes for water improvements for our potable water system, and it's related to building resilience to the system for hurricane protection. Part of this process, which Scott's going to go through shortly, is we have to have a public meeting and open this up to a public. We will take comment on the plan from the public and incorporate those comments into the final facility plan that will go into the final approval from FDEP and also the EPA. And so Scott's going to go through a couple slides, explain the facility plan to everybody. Then hopefully our wonderful residents will provide some comment that we can put into that facility plan. And then we'll move it on so we can get the $12.9 million of work and build these wonderful infrastructure things coming forward. So if that's okay, Mayor, I'll turn it over to Scott, our town engineer.
Thank you, Paul, and good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Scott Shannon with Woodard & Curran. With me is my colleague, Sean Brown. And what we're here to do tonight is to present a summary of an amendment that we have developed for the town's drinking water facilities plan. As Paul mentioned, the reason for the amendment is as a condition of the grant agreement that you have with DEP, with Florida Department of Environmental Protection. The almost $13 million grant that Paul just referred to is a special appropriation as a result of Hurricanes Fiona and Ian. And so what the basis for the award that the town got is it is for the benefit of resiliency and to minimize service disruptions with respect to future storms specific to your drinking water system. So we did a facilities plan for you a couple of years ago that identified a couple of projects for which we have subsequently designed and will be ready for construction soon. The opportunity with this grant funding is that we can use the grant funding for construction of those things, but that there was also some additional budget to be able to do other things for the drinking water system that this grant money would fund. And so the purpose of the amendment, and I'm going to turn this over to Sean, who's the project manager for us, to kind of go through what those are. But the amendment is essentially to justify that the projects that we have identified, both prior and the list that we're going to go through tonight, meet DEP's requirements for this specific funding, which again is for resiliency or to minimize future service disruptions to your drinking water system as a result of a storm or natural disaster. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean, and you can walk through the technical aspects of the facilities plan itself.
Good evening, Sean Brown, Senior Project Manager with Woodard & Curran. Today I wanted to go through with you the Drinking Water Facilities Plan update that we prepared that addresses the SAFI grant specifically. And so I'll step through initially at a high level the town's needs with regards to the drinking water system. And then we'll go through the drinking water improvement projects, looking at the alternatives. I'll share some estimated costs and then talk about financial impacts to the customers, environmental impacts, and then a conceptual project schedule. And then we can move to public comments and city council discussion, followed by consideration of the resolution. So in considering the drinking water facilities plan amendment for the SAFI grant, we did go back and look at the original drinking water facilities plan that we prepared a couple years ago that was approved by town council to make sure that this new grant money could be utilized for these the two projects that were authorized for us to proceed with from a design standpoint. And the first thing that we identified under the original drinking water facilities plan where there was need was that the town had a primary water supply risk in terms of their two water supply wells. As you can see here in the slide, the wells are not balanced. One has quite larger production than the other. And so our concern for the town was that if there's an instance where the larger well at water treatment plant number 1 is out of service for an extended time, you will deplete the storage, the 150,000 gallon elevated storage tank, and then there's the risk that the town could be out of water for a period of time until that well is put back into service. So so that was the first thing that we identified. Next slide, please. Then we also looked at Florida Administrative Code with regards to storage capacity, and this is in particular or specifically with regards to capacity to handle max day demand in addition to fire flow demand. And what we found was that there was inadequate capacity in the town to handle that scenario. The required capacity per code was 350,000 gallons. Now that is based on future demand, roughly 300,000 gallons in today's current demand. And so we were recommending, in addition to the 150,000 gallon storage that you already have, adding an additional elevated storage tank of 200,000 gallons to fill that deficit. Next slide, please. So after we reviewed those two items, then we went and looked in greater detail at the rest of the drinking water system for the town. That involves the infrastructure such as the pump houses, the pumps themselves, the wells, as well as the distribution network, including the fire hydrants, isolation valves for the water mains, that sort of thing. And so out of that review, no, that's okay, you can go to the next slide. So out of that review, this is the list of project alternatives that we developed to try to get funded through this SAFI grant. The first two are the ones that I touched on at the beginning that were previously approved and that we've already, that we've actually completed design on the first two. The backup UFA well at water treatment plant number 1 and a new security fence for that water treatment plant. That backup well will be the same capacity as the existing well at water treatment plant number 1. And the reason we feel that that's a strong need for the town is because of the age of that well. I believe that water treatment plant was put in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s. So it's getting quite old in terms of age of equipment and infrastructure.
And so real quick, when you use those acronyms like UFA, if you could just say what those are for if someone doesn't know
absolutely,
what those are.
yeah.
Thank you.
So UFA is Upper Florida Aquifer, and that's the primary source of water for the town right now, drinking water. In addition to that, there's a Lower Florida Aquifer, and I'll touch on that on item number 4. So the second item that we've moved forward with and completed design is the new elevated storage tank, and that's going to be located on property owned by the town that's on the northwest side of town. I think it's adjacent to the future new fire station. In addition to that, we looked at the distribution system and identified a number of issues with regards to some water mains that were undersized, creating possible flow and pressure issues in the town, as well as some old hydrants, some old isolation valves that needed replaced. And also we looked at looping within the distribution system so that if you do have to shut off a section of the water main, the looping will provide service for the rest of the town, so you're not having to isolate a large portion of the town if you've got to do work on the water supply piping. Number 4, the new LFA well. So the difference between the UFA and the LFA is that the UFA is at a much higher elevation in terms of the ground, about 300 to 400 feet below grade. The LFA has to be accessed at a much greater depth of about 1,000 to 1,200 feet. So it's actually isolated from the upper Florida aquifer by a confining layer of limestone. And the water district now has a big push to actually move many communities off of the UFA or restrict the use of the UFA, the upper Florida aquifer, because it is being stressed very heavily right now. So we see 2 benefits with installation of the new lower Florida aquifer well. One is having a backup source of water, but having a backup that's different from the upper Florida aquifer. So you've got a different water source. So if in any event anything happens to the upper Florida aquifer from a contamination standpoint, if you have any issue with your well, your primary well, you would have the LFA well as a full backup, and it also sets the town up nicely for where the district is pushing things in terms of actual supply and water usage from the aquifer. Number 5, SCADA upgrade. SCADA is supervisory control and data acquisition. And what we propose there is to take the controls and monitoring from the 2 water treatment plants and set up an operator interface terminal at the new library, which is also going to serve as the town's emergency operations center, so that both the plants can be remotely monitored and controlled in the event of an emergency or a natural disaster. Number 6, new water treatment plant pump house buildings and well pumps. This again gets to the age of that equipment. As you can see here in the picture, this is from water treatment plant number 2. I believe water treatment plant number 2 was put in the early 2000s. So again, getting to the end of life cycle on much of this equipment. I would say the pump houses have seen better days, and so putting in a new pump house buildings that are more resilient, that provide better protection not only for the equipment but for the wells themselves would be recommended. Number 7 is portable pneumatic isolation valve closing devices for the Public Works Department, and that's a relatively inexpensive investment, and it enables the small number of employees that the town has to respond to issues with regards to water supply. It allows them to quickly close isolation valves so that they can isolate if there are any water main breaks, quickly isolate those breaks and get them repaired so that you minimize the loss of water and the period of time that the service line is out of service for the residents. And then the last item that we identified was backup generators, and that addresses actually several locations. One at water treatment plant number 2, which that backup generator has failed and needs to be replaced. It's aged out in terms of actually repairing that unit, getting the parts needed to repair. So that unit needs to be fully replaced. In addition, supplying a new backup generator or a backup generator for the new library and emergency operations center for the town, so that if power is lost, that emergency operations center can remain in operation during the power outage. And then lastly, a portable generator that the Public Works Department that can use if they have any issues at either water treatment plant. They've got some ability to move in a portable generator, quickly connect it, and bypass the existing generator and keep things operating, keep supply of water moving to the town. So for each of these, here's a cost estimate, full construction cost estimate for each of these alternatives. Total is $17 million for all 8. The first 2 are the ones that have been approved, and we've completed design with, and just waiting on the SAFI letter of approval and planning to submit those design documents to DEP for approval.
And just adding, those are construction estimates, which will always tend to be high, but we always want to put it high, so we go down the list of priorities as we go through the system.
So go back to the one before that. Let's slide now. Next one. Back.
This one?
Yeah. Our generators right now, we have one at the tower and one over here, right?
Correct.
And then one by the firehouse.
Correct.
Okay. And the one over here is a diesel that's way outdated, right?
It's not even functioning properly.
Oh, okay.
It's in the FEMA round also for grant money too, in case this doesn't get approved through the process.
And the one at the tower is natural gas?
It is natural gas, that's correct.
When we replace, are we going to dig new holes or replace the whole pump and all inside the one by the tower?
For the well itself?
Yeah.
It'll be a brand new well adjacent to the existing pump house. That well will actually, and that pump will actually be designed for outdoor installation. So there won't be a pump house around that one, but it will be an entirely new well connected to the upper Florida aquifer.
So we'll keep the old one working just to have it?
So yeah, right now the old one is working fine, although I don't think that pump has been looked at in terms of the maintenance of the pump. I don't think that pump has been pulled in a very long time. So the quality of the well itself and the pump itself is really unknown, and due to the operating time of that pump, that's the concern. So having both gives you some flexibility there. You can You can shut the existing well down if you want to replace that pump and put in a new one, or if you have problems. So it just gives you a lot of flexibility if you've got issues with one or the other. So you're not strapped to only having the smaller well at water treatment plant number 2 for the entire town.
And Mayor, just to piggyback on that, the goal will be from town staff operation that all 3 wells will be operating apart and they will be electronically rotating through each well.
So you mean this one and 2 up there?
Well, but one will run at a time. We don't need them all to run at a time, but yeah, one at a time will run. And as they'll just alternate between all 3 of the wells, and even when we get to LFA well, it would eventually alternate between that well as well.
So we're putting a tower up by the new fire station, I know that. Why not put a well there too?
So that's the, so we've been talking with Paul about where best to put the LFA well. That is one possible location to put it adjacent to that new water tower.
Instead of over at the other water tower, right?
Oh, you mean the UFA well?
Yeah, so we've got the two wells. Number 1 is the backup, the redundant UFA well at existing water treatment plant number 1. So that's the one that I just described that'll be installed outdoors, brand new well that'll be drilled for that one. The LFA well is the one that we're proposing for the lower Florida aquifer. We haven't actually nailed down a location yet with the town. We're kicking around some ideas on where best to put that, but we have looked at putting that at the new elevated storage tank. That'd be a good location.
And real quick, just council, just because I think I know one of the things you're trying to say. So you guys understand how our system works. The wells, why they fill the water tower, it doesn't pump directly into the water tower, so it's pneumatic off all the pressure, so it wouldn't matter where you pumped it into the system, so if you got to add the chlorine into it, there's some things related to that. It fills it wherever it is in the system. So obviously when this well turns on here, it's filling the tank on the other side, and it's the elevated pressure that keeps our water flow at that 70 psi in the system. So wherever the well's in the system, it will fill the tank up no matter what. It's just a matter of we got to get contact time for the chlorine. Does that make sense to everybody? Just so everybody understands how that system works. Sorry.
So we're going to wind up with a tower on the hill by the station, the old tower, and this tank here that's already there.
The hydropneumatic tank that you have? Yes, correct.
So just curious, power goes out, our generators aren't working. How long will all 3 tanks keep the town running?
Well, the hydropneumatic, I mean, you've got, 25,000 gallons there, and actually DEP doesn't qualify that as storage, so you can't take that one into account. So if you put in with a 200,000 gallon up on the hill, and you've got 150 here existing, I mean, that's probably 2.5 days at full town build out. Probably longer, 3.5 with current demands. It all depends on what the demands are in the town. If you have a fire event, obviously that gets shortened a lot. If you're max day versus average day, so there's a lot to take into account there. But I would say on average, probably 3 or 4 days storage.
Okay. Well, what I'm thinking is, okay, on the existing tower, you're going to build a well on the outside. The one that's on the inside, I would think we would pull it all apart and put it back together, the bearings and all replaced all the way down.
Right.
Everything replaced, so it's a ready enabled well.
Correct, and that would be paid for under number 6, new water treatment plant pump house buildings and well pumps.
Yeah, so that is the plan, Mayor. We actually want to pull both of those wells out, have the casing certified, checked, rebuild anything that needs to be taken care of, and put it back together like it's brand new.
So that'd be both existing?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's
Making
correct.
sure, okay.
No, that's good. That's why we're doing this. We want the council definitely to understand and comment in case we forget something.
Mm-hmm.
So you had mentioned that you didn't know where a location was. Which well is that for?
The LFA well. So there are 2 locations we're looking at right now that we've spoken with Paul about. One is at the new elevated storage tank adjacent to that on the northwest side of town, and the other is in the vicinity of the current water treatment plant number 2. I understand the town has a new ground storage tank that they've purchased, and so it may be in that area if that's a better location.
What we're trying, as you council knows, we've been for the last 2.5 years working on our new consumptive use permit with DEP to get our water allocations for the next 20 years. And one of the things they've been pushing is a secondary source of water for irrigation or reuse that's not from the upper fluorine aquifer, either by lake water or going to the LFA. As we've put the tank in, we've been looking at lake water. Now that we have this grant money, we're running through the exercise in talking, or going to be talking with DEP. One location we looked at by the storage tank, no matter where it's at, it's going to fill the storage tank. So that's one location. There's some advantages to having it out there. It's high, not a lot of trees. The other location is we're looking at the new water tank we put in because it could serve a twofold purpose there. One, we already have a tank so we can get the contact time for the chlorine that's required under your operating permit. But the second reason is until we need the LFA well water to go into our systems, we have really great drinking water compared to most communities in the area, and we like the source we have, but we may be short, say 15 or 20% as we grow. At the site of our butterfly garden in that tank, we would have the option of using that LFA well now because we could plug it directly into irrigation use right now and start using it and not have it take credit out of our existing potable system. And so it does have a twofold advantage to that. So when they get to the point of design and we get a little bit more information, we're definitely gonna come back to council and kind of throw you, here's advantages and disadvantages of both. Where the LFA on the hill, we wouldn't necessarily want to use it really quick and use that water because we do like the water we have from the UFA.
So we also have the other well that's closed right now. So I'm looking at that, thinking.
Which well is that?
The one in the development that's being built.
Yeah, it is not permitted for consumptive use. We don't have a permit for it outside of anything, just a normal water. And it's a small well. I mean, it's probably not ideal for necessarily hooking into the potable system. The challenge we're having as if I could just explain this for people that weren't here last time, as we go through our consumptive use permit, we've been using smaller irrigation wells, like at the developments, we have some in town, and DEP is taking the position now, all these small irrigation wells, they want them all metered and counted against our consumptive use permit. And so that does change a lot because in the past that water hasn't been included in our potable, and that's a good amount of water. I mean, it's a lot of water removing. So that's kind of why we're looking at these other sources that we have, so it doesn't come out of the upper fluorine aquifer, it would come out of something else.
Well, if we have we're going to have the 2 wells we have now plus the lower one put in, so that'd be 3 wells compared to we always had 2. So that should be enough. I was just thinking that.
Yeah, we'll actually end up with 4.
Right on the hill.
Yeah.
But the one that's sitting over there, we got to remember we still have that. I don't know if it would ever be any good for anything. I'm just throwing it out there. Can you go to the next slide with the money on it? Now, we have, what, 12.9 million or something?
Right.
12.9 million for this project, and if I'm right, that says 17 million.
That's
correct. Yeah. So if you can go to the next slide, I'll explain that. So the thought was to, and we spoke with DEP about this, let's go ahead and submit with the SAFI grant with the drinking water new facilities plan update. Let's go ahead and submit everything that we think that the town needs in terms of drinking water improvements. And then the allocation amount is $12,900. DEP is going to review each of those things that we've recommended as an alternative improvement, and they're going to tell us, yes, we'll fund this through SAFI or we won't. And then once we know that, we'll be able to then work with the town and set priorities for these things. We know we've got the first 2 there, the redundant UFA well and the new elevated storage tank that are already approved, but then we can pick and choose to come in so that the work is within that $12,900 grant, so we don't exceed that.
Sean, let me just elaborate on something here. So the SAFI, when Sean says SAFI, that is the Special Appropriation for Hurricanes Fiona and Ian. That's what that stands for. this is a new funding program through DEP. It's something that cascades down from the federal government. And so the point here is DEP themselves is going through this the first time, and it includes an additional review step at EPA where they will, we don't yet know because they haven't done really, we've gone through this at least once or twice with them, but it could range from them just cascade blessing this whole thing and saying, okay, yes, you can use the money for all of it, or there may be pieces of that for whatever reason don't meet their criteria. And so the benefit of proposing more than what the grant now allows is if they prove everything great, then we have the job of going through and prioritizing what we're going to spend that money on. But if for some reason they don't like one of those proposals, then at least you still have something already in the plan as a backup for that, and we don't have to go through the planning process twice. So that was the rationale behind. Let's identify all those needs, and let's see what DEP and EPA will determine is eligible, and if there's any issues with them, we just move on to the next thing. But it just gives us the flexibility, you all the flexibility to ultimately prioritize what is the greatest need to use this money for.
I just wanted you to say that so it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Mayor, that's the most valid point, and also we are hoping to get better pricing, but the main thing why we want to overshoot the price, in addition to what he said, is the facility plan from when you guys approve the resolution to the start, from when they get it to DP, it's a 6-month process, and we're down to under 2 years now to spend all this money, and so it's going to be pretty real a grand slam to try to get this in toward the end of 27 kind of thing. When that's approved, and where there's no guarantee they're going to get extend any of these things in the political where we're at.
Alrighty, let's open it up to the public. Anybody have any questions?
Mayor, we just have a few more things we have to go through the rest of it. I'm so sorry.
Real quick, it won't take long. Next slide, please. So we also did an environmental assessment. We looked at surface water in the area, wetlands, environmentally sensitive lands, as well as plant and animal communities. And our assessment revealed that there will be no negative impacts from an environmental standpoint to any of these projects. And lastly, just a high-level conceptual project schedule. The takeaway here is the first column, backup UFA well and new elevated storage tank. Planning and design for those are complete. As soon as we get the letter of approval for this facilities plan update from DEP, we can go ahead and submit those design documents to DEP for review and approval. So those are ready to go. The other improvements, obviously, we'll have to move into design after the facilities plan update is approved. And then once that design is completed, again, we do the same thing, submit the documents to DEP for review and approval before we receive a letter to be able to proceed with bidding and construction. And I think that's the last slide, Paul. Yep. Thank you. Any other questions for me?
No, not yet. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, it's public comment time. Come on up.
Thank you. Jerry Brown from Willow Ridge, 15978 Winding Bluff. I want to thank you for your questions to the candidates. Thank you for taking this job very seriously. I just took a picture. I own a small software company we operate in about 6 countries. We power about $200 million worth of travel. Money's a big deal, being an entrepreneur. And I would just ask that this council to remember that this is the people's money. This is mentioned you mentioned that there was padding built into this. Do you have a percentage of the padding that's built into this?
Yeah, I think construction contingency was 20 or 30%. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that's at a planning stage, obviously.
Definitely wouldn't fly in the entrepreneurial market, 20, 30%. And also, it said something on here that distribution system improvements were $3.9 million. Is there an outline of that, or is that the catch-all? Is that the miscellaneous line item? for $4 million?
Sure. So I'll jump in and you can join. Just because of how the system, it's a lot different than private. So this has been 3 years in the making. So we started with original facility plan that got us another grant to do some design. Then what this is a facility plan. So it's a big overview of a concepts of what you want to do. And you have to get that approved before you go to the next step and spend the money. Then it goes into engineering plans. Then DEP will approve those engineering plans. Then we send it out to bid the construction, then the final clearances go back to DEP. So this is a step in the process. The details you're just asked won't be until this step is complete.
Okay, I would just ask.
And I understand it's very complicated. And,
You know,
in the private sector, you definitely get to go say, hey, I want this, boom, boom, boom. We have all these processes, and that's part of it that we got to go through.
Some of the people in the community are very, very smart. We're very, very detailed, very, very intelligent. I would ask you to give us some more detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
And I
for
do
coming.
appreciate your questions. Thank you.
All righty. Anybody else? Come on up. Come on up, Randy, in a minute. Brian.
Randy Ellman, 16603 Lowry Road, Montverde, Florida. So you're proposing, you're going to build a new well up there on Lake Street?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Is that going to affect Lake Florence in any way?
Well, no, I mean, no more than the current well does right now, which has been in operation for how many years?
Mhm.
Yeah, so you're running one well or the other identical well, so there should be
So
no
it's not
impact.
going to affect the
No.
level of the lake?
No.
Okay.
And both of them don't pump at the same time, so it's not going to have a drawdown any different than what the current drawdown is. So it's just truly.
Does it affect it now?
It's truly redundant word operation.
Do you think it affects the lake or not?
It does not. So the other thing that we'll be required to do by the district is do an aquifer performance test once the well's drilled. We'll also have to provide them with documentation ahead of time with the design showing that it will not affect the minimum levels in the lake.
Mhm.
Actually will not affect levels. You're talking about Lake Apopka or Lake
No,
Florence?
I'm talking about Lake Florence.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
premier lake of Montverde.
No. In fact, that's why we're putting it where we're putting it, so it has no impact on Lake Florence.
Yeah, but it's very close to Lake Florence.
But you're 1,000 feet in the ground, and but that'll all be worked out with the district, and
Mhm.
we'll make sure that there's no impact.
And you're proposing a new tower there? Like we have the tower there, the main tower that we have?
Correct, on the property northwest of town.
So then we're going to
The
have...
Stetcher property out on 455 in Foscott.
but
that one stays.
So we're not putting a new tank up
The
there?
only thing you'll see is a big round circle out of the ground different and a new gate there, new fence. That's it.
All right. The main concern's Lake Florence.
All righty. Brian, do you want to come up?
Brian, 16548 Magnolia Terrace. Back to the question on how much is built in as a contingency, at least from the chart that is on page 85 in your agenda packets. The drinking water supply and storage upgrade alternative cost comparison shows on there contingency of 10%, engineering permitting, design 10%, engineering service during construction 5%, legal and administrative 3%. Now, for a project of this scale, is that adequate? That would be one of my questions. I don't know who may answer that. Aside from that, I do have several other things. Let's see. So I did go through the entire report. It does mention lightly on the materials that are going to be used for the exterior and interior. Will there be options of upgrading, let's say like the exterior coating to prolong the life of the, pretty much everything, all the equipment, tower, et cetera, pipes. And it goes back to the lifespan. It shows on there 20-year lifespan for pretty much most of the stuff. Is that something adequate? Should it be less? Should it be more realistic? Now, electricity costs on there, I think it showed $17,000 for annual cost for electricity. Now, is that, I guess, Should it be more? Should it be less? How does that, I guess, extrapolate like over 5 years or 10 years? Obviously everything goes up. The cost of everything goes up. So I didn't see anything on there. In addition, I didn't see anything about the town having to add a budget line for replacement, maintenance, et cetera. Like what would that look like in the budget of the town? That's not discussed obviously in here. I don't think it falls in that scope, but it's things that the council should consider. Now, I know the town manager has a lot on his hands. With the addition of these things, will there be a need to have an additional person, whether it's for maintenance, to obviously make sure that the water's getting the chlorine necessary, et cetera, testing these equipments X amount of times throughout the year? Like, what is that going to look like? Again, the town manager does have his hands full, so if you added, staff or you contract somebody out, that's an additional cost that the town has to consider. Obviously, goes back to the budget. Let's see. I have a very lengthy list, so I'm trying to shorten it down. Now, on there, it did have the growth projections. I think that Woodard and Curran puts it to about 3,300 in population in 2045. Now, I didn't see how they derived that population growth and how, what are they applying, as year over year in regards to that population growth. I think the have was right now for 2025 at 1,655, but, I guess who's double checking these numbers to ensure that they're adequate enough to where, you can get started in this project and then now you're 25% over budget, and obviously somebody has to pay that, so that's something else to consider. And last but not least, or at least again, the report here doesn't show, it shows the location, but it doesn't say, well, is it going to be a landscape barrier? What's going to be put in place to offset, obviously, just having, the equipment there. And I did go through the report on what the environmental impact are. I'll be very honest with you, it looked to me a little bit too generic. I think there were a few things in there missing. The new PUD that was approved, there's obviously a few other environmental impacts that that was going to have on life, and this is not too far from that, and I didn't see that overlap, those things that are being impacted in this one. So I question if that's fully accurate as to what the environmental impact is on the life, animals, etc. So, but that's all I got. I know there's a lot of questions. It's just something for the council to consider and I guess look at. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Anybody else? Come on up.
Hello, Kelly Moore, 17029 Florence View Drive, Magnolia Terrace. A couple questions. One, if we're putting this near the existing well, by the existing tower on Lake, how far away is it? Is it, a couple feet, or are we into the other property we're looking at? What's the?
I think straight line distance is something like 50, 60 feet, I believe, something like that.
So
the existing well.
So pretty close, okay?
To the existing, yeah.
So is this something we knew that we were going to be needing while we were considering putting in the sewer in the same, relatively same area?
Yeah, we did know.
Okay, so now as we're trying to, have growth happen, and it's going to happen, but to manage that growth with the impact, a couple things I want to share with the council. During this last several months with all the social media postings and whatnot, I read a couple what I thought were well thought posts by Mr. Rubio. I don't really know Mr. Rubio, but when I read through his impact study with the traffic impact on Montverde Academy, and he looked at that very carefully, and some of his social media posts about the impact of the sewer system, I think he's well researched and very thoughtful and asking good questions. The questions I have is, a couple of the council members tonight voted to support Jim Peacock. And Jim Peacock, when I spoke to him some months ago, was totally supportive of putting the sewer behind Magnolia Terrace. And I asked him, I said, are you comfortable with that sewer drainage system going 500 feet from our well? Now I'm learning we're putting another well right by that. And yet, the two people who supported Jim Peacock tonight were the very same people who voted against the sewer. So I don't see the logic in supporting someone who had the decision that only by one vote, I don't have a sewer being put behind my house. Now, to wait for the next election to let the voters speak, I don't see the logic in that. It's up to you to have leadership to see, do we have people here who are willing to step up, serve the community, and give us, a different perspective than maybe what we've had. Now, if someone has run for council several times, but somehow gets back on council just by being appointed, I think it's fair to say, if other people want to run, they should be given the opportunity to earn your vote and not put it
Right
off.
now, we're
Okay?
talking about the
So that's
well.
what I want to say. So I'm a little concerned that we didn't talk about this well while we were investigating the sewer system. Why is this coming up at this point and it wasn't brought up at that point? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Come on up.
Kira Program, 16443 Magnolia Bluff Drive. I haven't done a lot of research on this yet, so you guys are lucky. I only have a couple questions tonight. One thing I want to know that I haven't heard you guys ask is, in approving this resolution, what is the financial impact if we're unable to get approval of the items being submitted for approval for the SAFI loan? Are we tied to anything by approving the resolution? So if they start engineering, we don't have to pay for anything?
We're not starting until we all agree on it.
Until we have approval?
Mhm.
Okay. One thing I would say is, I believe last time I came in with a huge list of all the things that the SAFI grant loan could cover. I would just ask that before you guys move forward, you familiarize yourself with that list, because the one thing that I'm thinking, and I don't know much about this topic, is why do we need 2 towers in such a small town? I understand that currently it's not enough capacity, but is it possible for them to refit the one that we have so we don't have 2? I've not been in another small town like this that we have 2 water towers. But that's the only thing that's coming to mind right now that I wanted to put in front of you guys. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? All right, I'll bring it back to council. Any comments?
Yeah, I have a couple like this. Hang on, let me look at my notes. Gentleman Terry had mentioned, and I think that's something we all need to realize, that grants, they're great, I guess. I mean, it's not really free money that's just falling from the sky. This is actual tax dollars that are going to us.
Could you pull your mic just a tad?
Sorry, can you guys all hear me? All right. So, when we're looking at grant money, it's not free money, so to speak. And I think, can we look at other avenues? Can we look at upgrading our current wells? Is that a possibility? Like, instead of going forward and having $17 million, can we upgrade what we have for half of that? We'll definitely be well within the grant. We don't have to worry about running into any kind of overage charges or whatnot.
I guess I'm not understanding the
Do we have
upgrade
to
it
go
what?
forward and build new wells, or can we just upgrade what we already have with the grant?
I guess that's what it's doing.
we're building
You're
new
saying
as
with
well.
other money besides the grant money?
No, taking some of this, instead of using this to build brand new, we would upgrade.
Some of it is. On number 6, for instance, so we're going to be pulling the existing pumps out and rebuilding them and getting that fixed, redoing the buildings. So we are doing that. So the two big issues is, the big one is we don't meet the administrative code for fire flows. So at some point that's going to slap us with DEP. And what we want to do is meet it with the grant money versus meet it with general fund money, obviously, because the implications of that.
Can we, as we're doing that, are we able to upgrade the well as well as, I guess, repairing as well? But I'm sort of mentioning, like, I guess, upgrading to
Well, let me help you with that. The water tower we have is over 30 years old. They're only made for 30 years. So who knows, we've taken extremely well care of it. And the company that does it for us, that paints the inside, paints the outside, looks at everything, it took me, I'm not exaggerating, a year for them to finally tell me it's in great shape and you guys got quite a few years left on it. But because it was right at the end of its life, supposedly, they never wanted to tell me that. So the new tower that we're building is going to eventually replace the one we have. That one's not going to be there, be able to use it forever. So that's kind of why we're doing the other two tower and another tower. And it's almost $6 million all by itself. So now to upgrade the different parts in the town that need, you know, from 6-inch to 8-inch to 10-inch lines, and we do have places in the town that need the pipes that are in the ground removed because they should have been removed a long time ago. That's going to be a few more million too. So we have $13 million. We're not going to spend $17 million. They're just applying for that, and then they're going to see what's going to happen. We're not going to spend more than $13 million.
And when you look at the 25% contingency, because they do this on everything they do with me, that is your 25% is built into that $17 million. Okay. Yeah, so they bid it high. And if I could, let me just, real briefly, I can go down and let me justify why these particular things are in the system. And maybe that would kind of help understand what they are. Then, if you guys want to chime in as I go through it. So the backup UFA well, I think he mentioned that. So this is just a redundant well. It's not additional consumptive use. If something happens, lightning strike, a tree falls on the well over there, this old well doesn't have enough capacity to keep up with the town, and especially in a fire flow. That one pumps almost, definitely more than twice as much as this one. So that's the justification around that. Why we're doing it, we want to improve the fence. We want to bring it up to date so it looks the Montverde style, which is a little bit nicer with the black iron fence, so it matches what we're doing in Montverde. So it's a better, that standard we're trying to do. The elevated storage tank, that is a capacity issue. Right now, under our current system, we have plenty of water for our residents, and I don't want anybody to take this wrong. We have plenty of drinking water. It's not an issue. Where we're falling short under the administrative code and actually under Florida building code, that you have to provide 1,500 gallons per minute for 2 hours, and that's your flow rate. And is that correct? Did I say that right?
Plus max day demand.
Plus maximum day demand. We don't meet that right now.
That's
So
for
under
fire too.
Yeah, for an under extreme fire event, which the whole entire side of this town was on fire from 90-mile-an-hour blowing winds. That's where we would start having some. So that's the justification of that. The distribution improvements. We have some lines in town that are serving multiple areas and homes that are run off 2-inch lines. We actually, I'll do this example. The most extreme example where we have a problem is on South Ridgewood. As you head toward the trailer park, we have 5 new homes, huge homes there. There's no fire hydrant. All those houses, I believe, are served off an 1.25-inch poly line. There's no water down there. We got to get water down there. So what we want to do is get our hydrants good, get our system going, and they also have the looping of the systems. We've had some people, like neighbors from Mag Terrace, have come in where there's some water quality issues. We have some dead ends in Mag Terrace that we can take an opportunity to loop that in to keep the water circulating, but also where we don't have to isolate a whole area if it goes down. And we have valves that aren't working in town on some of our valves, so we have to go out and isolate things. The LFA well, you guys just sat for the consumptive use permit. You guys get the LFA well. We don't have a choice. We got to do something. I mean, state's telling us you got to do it. The SCADA upgrades, that is really if we can come in. It's 90-mile-an-hour winds blowing, and we have a huge water line break somewhere, or there's a problem with the tower. We can sit in a safe location and not risk staff going out in a 100-mile-an-hour wind in a storm and control the situation remotely. We'll be able to do it from in our emergency operations center or logging on remotely from our FEMA safe house that we have at the county going through. The new wastewater treatment pump house and building wells, so that's what we just talked about. We're doing those existing wells and those pumps, so that's all the current stuff, rebuilding those, getting those houses fortified. If a tree falls on there, those roofs aren't going to handle the tree falling. All the water's going to come in, everything's going to go bzz, and we're done. So that's what we want to do with that. The pneumatic isolation valves, I just kind of covered that. That just gives us more control over the system, where if we can't get to something quickly, again, because this is hurricane, has to be related to hurricane stuff, that gives us the ability to remotely control things as we go forward. Then, I mean, the backup generators, we have one that is not working correctly right now, and the other one's getting old, and we have our new center when we have, you know my staff is here during hurricanes, and we stay involved, we get on it, and we need to make sure we be able to have lights on when we come. And we're mainly going to be working out of that new building. So I just want to do that so you understand that's the justification, or trying to justify that work within the guidelines and the boundaries of that SOFI grant. Does that help you with that?
It does. I guess it sort of opened another question for me, though, and that is, going forward, all this new equipment, how are we going to maintain this? Obviously, grant money won't pay this. This is going to be then general fund to pay for that, correct?
Yeah, well, I look at it this way. We got to maintain it anyway. We got to maintain what we have, and whether at the end of the day, most of these items are going to have to get completed anyway. It's just at some point, let's say over the next 15 years, in the past, we have impact fees. We've been doing it with impact fees. When the next resolution, it will be spending some of those impact fees. That's how we did in the past, but it was a small step at a time, and we have a contract person that does a lot of our operational stuff. They come in every day, check chlorine, do those things, and our public works does the maintenance.
It's kind of like you're going to rebuild a used car, or you're going to put in a new car. Your maintenance is going to be much less on a new car, no matter what.
True.
So that's what we're going to have here.
We are adding additional equipment, though, so it's just something that I think we're going to have to budget for.
But we're only going to use the same amount right now.
Yeah, but you still
Like
have to
we won't be
maintain it,
using
though.
that one well while we're using the new well.
Correct.
But you still have to maintain.
Well, that's why I said, is there money in there to rebuild the 2 wells we have? And they said yes.
Yeah, so it gets everything up to a good standard for maintenance. But going forward, the whole thought is, obviously, it's going to be no secret as the town grows. Osgood Development's, going to start working. Willow Ridge is almost closed out. You got Bella Clina, then the town's kind of done after that. We probably will have to put another public work employees on, but the good news is by putting some of these things in, it does save us money. Just electronic control, less wasteful water, less energy consumption, newer equipment. They're going to, have variable frequency drives on them, which saves on the startup cost, which is your biggest thing on these big three-phase motors. So there's a lot of things that actually will help us save some money down the road.
It really, 6 months ago, I asked them to lower the water rate. And after looking at it, we were able to lower the rotor rate. Once you put this new equipment in, Paul, I haven't started asking for it yet, but we're going to be able to lower the water rate even more.
A good analogy is we look at this building right here in the summer, because it's such an old building, there's no insulation in it. The air conditioner never turns off in this building. It just runs. The new library that we put in, it's so well insulated, you can walk in there at 3 in the afternoon when it was cold in the morning, it was 80 degrees, and it's still cold in there from the day before. And I think that's what you're going to see with some of this equipment. You're going to have that cost savings just because it's new.
So you're envisioning water bills going down again? All right, I'm going to hold you to that.
No, absolutely. We already did 10%
Across,
this year in 24.
Across the whole town?
Yeah, we already did it. You weren't at that meeting?
I was, but there were residents left out of that drop, so that's why I'm sort of asking that.
No, that was across the board. So we dropped the potable, or your used water got dropped. So your consumptive used water, we did lower that, and we left everything the same for the base rate, and that automatically increases every year. And it's actually that time to look at that base rate again. But where we're at in the budget at the next council meeting, I'm going to ask council not to do that increase, that annual budget CPI increase, because we're doing pretty good shape. So you ruined my surprise, but thank you.
All right, let's move on. We got 4 other resolutions. All right, anybody want to talk about it? Okay, got anything?
Yeah, the big thing with that tower, like we talked about 4 or 5 years ago, was capacity. Capacity is the engine that's driving this train. I mean, if we don't have capacity, you don't have capacity. And we went through all that discussion, fire and everything else, and the answer was, you got to have more capacity. So that was the whole gist of this. And
I can tell you the only thing that ever kept me up before Paul was here was the
old-
water.
Yeah.
That's it. Not the fire department, none of that, it was the water.
That's true.
You want to speak?
Brian Rubio, 16548 Magnolia Terrace. Two things I forgot to say. One of which, the costs that are projected in the report on page 85 says they were presented in 2023 dollars. Should that be updated to today's costs, obviously, or at least, figure out if, if the construction has changed from these numbers? And then the other part is, if it's put into the property that the town owns, will it render that piece of land useless for anything else that the town may need at a future date? So just wanted to bring those things up to council for consideration.
All righty, thank you very much. All right, Carol, you have anything? Okay, so we need to make a motion to approve or deny 2025. Well, come on up. Well,
One last question, Kelly Moore, 17029 Florence View Drive, Magnolia Terrace. So is there going to be the takedown of the current tower at some point? So it's going to be up there forever, even though it had a 30-year?
I think it's going to be there, and this is my own feeling from talking to the guys that take care of it, 15 more years.
50 more years? So it's designed for 30, but we're hoping for 50 more.
15.
15, okay.
Yep.
All right, so.
I think it's going to last. I'm looking at the engineers, they don't like that, but.
I'm going for 30.
It's only built
It's
for
really
30,
good
we're
shape.
at 30.
So our new tower, our new secondary tower being the Stetcher property is what you're saying is the
Correct.
proposal? Okay. And again, the impotence on this whole thing was because the fire regulations came out and said we are at a threshold where we may not be able to meet those regulations. That's why this was not brought up earlier during the whole sewer thing, that all of a sudden now we're
We
here.
didn't have the money yet, until recently.
I mean, I'm just trying to look at like,
Yeah.
why weren't we discussing that earlier? Now
Let's
it's-
back up. This discussion's been going on over 3 years, multiple meetings. In fact, the first two things on the project were approved and are fully engineered by the council using impact fees, using developer impact fees. So this has been an ongoing discussion.
Okay.
Plans have been presented. So yes, we've done multiple
It's been
meetings.
Okay, thank you very much.
Before Willow Ridge was, if you remember, I don't know if you were here, when we were doing Willow Ridge, to supply Willow Ridge with water, I don't know if you remember, we were at a scramble on how much loan we're going to have to take to upgrade the water system.
Yeah,
at
correct.
that point. And it was, we were on the wire for that one.
If I recall, there was a study from Kimley Horn that
Yeah,
the
that
town
was it.
contracted with, and I want to say that was 2017 or 18 when
Yeah.
you did the study, and that was the same issue. You got an issue right now, and it's going to get worse as time goes
Right.
on.
It was just that we could not supply Willow Ridge, and we didn't want Clearmont to supply it, so. it was-
It's all stuff that's going to happen one way or the other, and it's just, again, it comes back if we do with
All right.
federal grant money versus general fund money.
Yeah, I think everybody's good now. Need a motion to deny or okay the 2025-163?
I so move resolution 2025-163 be approved as submitted.
I need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Ayes have it. Okay, let's move on, if you would, please. 2025-168.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Florida, approving proposal for design engineering services for SAFI-funded drinking water system improvements, phases 2 and 3, dated March 18th, 2025, between the Town of Montverde and Woodard and Curran Incorporated, authorizing the town manager to execute the agreement, providing for an effective date.
Okay, so this is the design engineering part. We have to okay this. It's all step by step. What was the price on that? Million?
900 and, sorry, flip my page.
991 and some change, I think.
991, 430.
Okay. And that's usually a percentage of the whole project. which-
Correct.
right.
That reflects numbers that are in the facilities plan,
Right.
allowances at the planning stage that are part of your agreement with DEP.
Right, I've seen this a few times. Okay, so I'll open it up to the public to talk about that. Anybody want to talk about the engineering design and agreeing to sign a contract with Woodward and Curran? Okay, I'll bring it back to council. Any conversation on this one?
I had a quick question. I think there's a typo in section 5, unless I'm misinterpreting terminology, but it says authorization to proceed with preparation of the West US 192 redevelopment plan. I don't believe that's us.
Yeah, we'll correct that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else? Come on up.
Mr. Morganelli, what was that reference? I just want to make sure I mark that down to fix.
Pamela Tarver, 16454 Magnolia Bluff Drive. Just really trying to understand what this is saying, because a lot of these resolutions wasn't a part of from the beginning, so please explain this one for me. I see what you're saying, drinking water, but what is phase 2 and 3?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the engineering service part, kind of the next step where they start putting the plans together to, with the exception of the redundant well in the tower. So where they're going to start next is drawing the lines, all these undersized lines and the loops. That'll kind of be the next thing. So it's actually for the engineering services to put the plans together so we can get the bid.
Okay, and this is for location of something, Woodland and Curran. I think that's the company that we're trying to partner with.
Yes.
So the town wants to give you, town manager, the authority to move forward with this engineer drawing.
With our engineer, correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep, that's it. Bingo. All righty. Bring it back to council. Anybody have any questions? Okay, what I need is a motion to either okay the engineering services or deny the engineering services.
Well, since I started it, resolution 2025-168 to be approved as presented.
Okay, I have a motion to approve it. I need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against say nays. Ayes have it. If you would, please, Anita, 2025-167.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Florida, announcing the updating of the town's existing impact fee studies for water, transportation, administrative, and parks and recreation, providing that development after adoption of any increased impact fee will be subject to the increased impact fee as determined by the study, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
All righty, this is pretty simple. We did a study and we're gonna look at raising our impact fees, so any house that's gonna be built or anything that's gonna be built going forward would have new fees if this passes. I'll open it up to the public.
Grant Roberts, 16004 Ridgewood Avenue. Is it possible to prepay your impact fees at the current rate before this becomes a thing, or?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No.
No, I'm kidding. Anita, can you answer that, please?
We would have to look at the code to see if it's allowed or not.
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head. But
Okay,
we can
so
get back to 'em.
we don't know.
Gotcha.
But I would put my money on yes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, the one issue we have, a lot of the impact fees are based off square footage on some of them. Some are based off the house or whatever, so we'd have to look at commercial residential, but I don't recall what the code says. We'll have to look into it.
Well, we are talking about government and impact fees, so if you're gonna build something, you wanna move it fast, if you don't wanna pay more. Anybody else? Come on up.
Natalie Galligan, 17041 Florence View Drive. What is the increase? It just says increase, but how much of an increase?
Sure. Can I answer that real quick, Mayor?
Sure.
If you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
So this is the direction to get the updated study, to get the final numbers to go. So this is not increasing the impact fees. And if you please keep an eye out, we're going to have 2 public workshops for you to come to listen to the impact fees and make comments. Then we're going to have 2 adoption hearings coming for the increase in the impact fees. So that'll, what was it, April, right? We did our first one? Somewhere mid-April will be the first opportunity. Then you also have a second opportunity at a workshop to comment in the public hearings.
And is that, you said for new construction, but would that be for everyone, or is that only for new houses from here on out?
No, if you built a garage in your back, that's an impact.
Okay, so any structure that's built?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, come on up.
I have a question of what is the purpose of the impact fees? If the purpose, if the township has a responsibility to help the individual homeowners raise their property values, why would you put a penalty on that or an extra penalty on it for trying to build that garage?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So the sole purpose of impact fees is for new development to pay for the impacts they have on existing town. So if you have a new subdivision come in, for instance, I'll use our new subdivision at Willow Ridge. They paid impact fees. Those impact fees go to put in new park equipment in, expanding sidewalks or streets if we need to, because now there's more people on those to use them. Can't use it for repairs, but any new infrastructure. If you don't do that and development doesn't pay, then everybody else that lives in town will have to pay for those increases, because obviously you're going to need turn lanes, you're going to need different things, sidewalks, as more people come to town.
Can I follow up? A lot of people in Willow Ridge are building pools in their backyards. From what I heard is that the existing impact fees are far more than they were expecting. So what you're actually doing is you're actually impacting the ability of Willow Ridge community to build more pools. And it sounds like that you're going to, new development, I understand completely, right?
I don't think pools, you don't pay impact fees on
Pools, but
yeah.
It's
It has to be a structure.
administrative, water, traffic, or streets, they call it, and Parks and Recs.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Okay, anybody else? Okay, great. Bring it back to council. There's no discussion. I need a motion, yes or no, this resolution.
Everybody's looking at me. Golly, what is this?
You're doing a good job at it.
Oh, yeah, okay, thank you. Well, here we go again, resolution 2025-167 to be approved as explained and presented.
I'll second.
I need a second. Okay, got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Ayes have it. If you would, please, 2025-166.
Miss,
Yep.
you want to go ahead? Okay. Sorry, Mayor, after consulting with our wonderful planning staff there, we believe we would like to ask the council to do a motion to continue this hearing for the CRA. There may be a publication issue that we need to check into, make sure the county was properly advertised on this.
Fine with me. Anybody have a problem with that?
That was one of those resolutions in the packet there to continue, so I think it was option 3, continue the resolution. Yes.
Want to make a motion?
On resolution number 2025-166, town council motion considerations, option number 3, continue action on resolution pending additional information requested by town council. I so recommend.
All righty, need a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Ayes have it. And then last but not least, 2025-170, please.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Florida, approving the Alert Lake interlocal agreement for use of the Alert Lake emergency notification system between Lake County, Florida and the Town of Montverde, Florida, authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement and providing an effective date.
All righty, and this is, instead of having code red like we did for many years, this is the new system, and the county does a fine job of putting this together, very effective. So we'll have it for when we have a hurricane or tornado or something. This will be the system that's used to notify everybody. And when the electric's out, this will be the system that's used to communicate, probably with your phones. But I'll open it up to public. This is saying we're going to go ahead and agree to sign a contract with them. Come on up.
Matthew Bauman, 1122 Imperial Eagle Street, Groveland, Florida. I just say I like the system. I also like that it texts you to make sure that you got it. And if you don't answer them, they keep bugging you. So I think it's a good plan.
Yeah, it's an awesome plan. Awesome. All righty, I'll open it up. Anybody else? All righty, come back to the council. Any discussion? If
Yeah,
not-
on a discussion on this, going back to our water resolution, there's a sidebar I'd like to bring up. If those of you hadn't seen it, our emergency management system years ago has on available for Florida hurricanes, and it's tracked them back to the late 1800s when they hit Florida. And I think it would be, what's the term, blow your ever-loving mind to see how many hurricanes come through Lake County. The state of Florida has this big blob of everything. It starts in the Caribbean and the Gulf, and they all seem to come through Central Florida for some reason. I don't know if they like to follow I-4, but it's amazing how many hurricanes have in the last 100+ years come through us, whether we want it or not. So this idea of a extra water tower and all this extra backup, if you're a betting man, I think Las Vegas would be betting against you if you didn't want to go that route. So it's years ago, I was up at the emergency management and they presented that to me, and it's just like, oh my gosh, you think of all the hurricanes in our lifetime, but the ones in the 50s and the 40s and back, you're going, I never knew that's what's happened. And they either come through from Tampa and go out Jacksonville, or they come from the Atlantic side and they come through us and they go to the Panhandle and they do something else. But we are like smack dab in the middle of the state, and I don't know what it is, but they like to pay us a visit. So this idea of the redundancy in the well and the backup, yeah, the statistics would say that's a smart betting man's purpose to go down that route. So just something to look at.
All righty.
Well, as to resolution 2020, as resolution 2025-170, I so move that we approve it.
Need a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Ayes have it. Yeah, come on up, Randy. We're moving right along.
Yeah, I won't take anybody's time up. Randy Ellman, Armstrong Aluminum, 16603 Lowry Road. It wasn't a plug. Yeah, I was going to request y'all table resolution 166 because kind of sprung on us and we don't have a lot of information. The public doesn't have a lot of information, but I guess Sean's not here tonight to defend himself, but I just have to say this. I really think that's a conflict of interest.
What's that?
Sean, Parks Consulting, you know, I mean, I've had a problem with that for a while, and I just wanted to publicly say that, you know, I don't know. It seems like a conflict of interest to me. And I think other people in the community think that too. I mean, you know, he has a business. He's on the planning board. You know, he's our planner. And, you know, just seems a little bit too close and too cozy.
Alrighty, well, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you to all the applicants that stayed.
Should we take a roll now?